Well, I went to a Kirk session a couple of years ago out at Glenholm. I only went to give my partner a lift, and that was where it became clear that Broughton Church was going to close, and that people were very upset about it. And at the time, I was studying Teresa of Avila, who suggests that we pray for God to show us what is ours to do. So I did, and then thought starting a prayer group here would be a good idea. So here we are.
Fantastic. And you read a passage from the showings or from her divine love, and then you have silence, and then you share your reflections on that.
We do at the moment. In the beginning, we looked at various kinds of prayer, because I believe very strongly that prayer should be focused on listening to God rather than telling God things. So we looked at silent contemplative prayer. We looked at praying by moving our bodies. We looked at healing prayer and several other things. And then after we'd done that for about 7 or 8 months, people felt they wanted to focus on contemplative prayer for a while. And the initial suggestion was that we look at Hildegard of Bingen, but I didn't know much about Hildegard of Bingen, and I knew more about Julian of Norwich, so we settled on Julian of Norwich, and we've been working with that text for over a year now.
And this is all happening as your church building was about to close. Just interesting to hear how it relates to that timing and context.
Yes, our congregation had shrunk, as with so many, and the building was deteriorating and was costing a lot to maintain. And around that time, we'd been designated as Category B for ultimate closure. And rather than fight that, when the evidence was clear that the building wasn't appropriate, it's not in the right place, it was very big, it didn't have good toilet facilities, it was more sensible to look at moving somewhere else. But we were also aware that that was not going to be an easy process for everyone. So part of this was to pray for inspiration, for guidance, to listen, to see where we could go and become also part of the community, part of the wider community, which, in all honesty, where we were sitting about a mile outside of the village, we weren't part of the community.
And this has led you to a few new initiatives that you mentioned to me earlier.
Well, things have kind of come about synchronicitously, if that's the word. So while this prayer group was starting, Nicola had also been starting wanderings in Broughton Now, where we wander around the woods, we stop and reflect on creation or on a theme. And I was really excited by that when Nicola talked to me, and she was quite excited about the prayer group here. So most of us have done the wanderings through the woods, although I've also started an accessible wandering, where, because Broughton Now is on a sort of 45-degree slope, most of it, which isn't very accessible for some people. So out at Glenholm we can walk on a flat surface, and the wanderings out there, we only wander about 600 yards, but we're still in creation. And for me, that was about, well, you find it in, of all places, Romans, where Paul says we can know God through what God has made. And it's obvious if we look at what God has made. So for me, that's been very much woven in with this, and woven in with, after church on a Sunday, because it's now in the village hall and we're sitting in a circle in comfortable chairs and there's a toilet you can use, we've stayed and talked to each other much more. So a lot of things have come together, not particularly come from this, but have woven together and made some of us quite excited about being part of the church.
Now, some folks would listen to this and think, gosh, we feel a long way from what you're discussing here. What would you say to churches who maybe haven't had such a rich experience of prayer or are a bit nervous about what you're doing?
Pray.
How?
Anyhow you like. Honestly, anyone can pray. The first thing to do is talk to God, but then be willing to shut up and listen for what God might be showing you. And that might be through a book or a television program or somebody saying, have you heard of Julian of Norwich? Or it might be through coming across something in another faith tradition altogether. But listen, if you ask God to show you the way forward, you have to listen. And you have to be willing to be surprised.
Yeah, before we did this, my experience of prayer was somebody standing up and, it's been used a lot, reading out a shopping list. And I always found that I couldn't do that. I didn't have the confidence, or I'm not sure quite what it was, but I found that very uncomfortable to do, and I didn't find it easy to listen to either. But I think this experience has revealed the wide range of ways that we can pray. And you don't have to vocalize. It can be in your thoughts. It can be in your actions. And a bit corny, but life is a prayer. So that's opened my eyes to what prayer is about.
And it sounds like as if this has been a blessing to all of you being part of this.
Absolutely. I think that the most important thing is to be open to different ideas, and I think we react off each other's ideas as well, and yeah, it's quite different to what I've been used to, and it works, certainly for us.
And what next? I mean, are you going to come to the end of Julian of Norwich? How do you see the future of the group, or how does it relate to church? Or
no idea. I will come to the end of Julian of Norwich, and then we'll see where the Spirit takes us. I mean, I would hope this group will continue, but in what form, what we'll do next, I don't know. I mean, I'm very keen on the mystics. I'm probably really a Quaker at heart because I quite like silence, but I also like to sing and I like to dance, and you know, we really need to be very open as to what we mean by prayer and worship, and not stuck in a rut, because the familiar can be comforting for people, but it can also be incredibly boring.
That's a great place to finish. Thank you so much.